Good evening. I'd like to call the February 26, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order. If you are able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the roll call, please?
Chair Halstead,
Here.
Commissioner Petty,
Here.
Commissioner Fikes,
Here.
Commissioner Ursley is absent, Commissioner Kraus,
Here.
she is present, Commissioner Woodard,
Here.
and Vice Chair Twait is absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we get the agenda approval, I want to bring the attention to the laydown materials. There is additions to the packet, Resolution PZ 2025-06 and PZ 2025-07. Is there a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda with the laydown materials?
Yes, I'd like to approve the consent agenda, and the laydown materials.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda items into the record?
You have approval of minutes, regular meeting of February 12th, 2025, and you have action approval. One second here. Wrong page. Action approval requesting excuse absences for the February 12th, 2025 regular meeting from Vice Chair Tweet and Commissioners Kraus, and that is your consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Are there any public comments on any of the consent agenda items just read by the clerk? Anything online? Are there any other revisions to the agenda? Are there any objections or approving the agenda and consent agenda? Hearing no objections, the agenda and consent agenda are approved. Which moves us, scheduled public comment. We have none. Leads us to our first unscheduled public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to anything that is not on the agenda?
And if there is anyone online that would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda, you may raise your hand at this time.
Okay. Moving on to consideration of plats, we have Resolution PZ 2025-09 recommending the approval of preliminary plat, Valhalla Heights subdivision, Conan replat of Lot 9 and Lot 10, Block 5A, Valhalla Heights subdivision, Part 5 in the Rural Residential Zoning District. We have a motion to approve Resolution PZ 2025-09.
I move to approve Resolution PZ 2025-09, recommending approval of a preliminary plat.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right. Director Buettner, can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So the city received a preliminary plat from Edge Survey and Design on behalf of the property owner for replat of lots 9 and 10, Block 5A, Valhalla Heights subdivision, Part 5, to merge lots 9 and 10 into one lot of approximately 30,840 square feet, or about 0.708 acres. Currently, a single-family dwelling is situated on the lot line between lots 9 and 10 with private water well and private septic tanks residing on lots 10 and 9 respectively. The subdivision regulations states preliminary plats must first come to us before we recommend to the borough. After looking at this, they are wanting to merge these two lots together. There was a non-conforming structure that's since been torn down. They want to rebuild a house on the land, but in order to meet the requirements for DEC for water and wastewater separation, we have to merge the lots to make it big enough. And at this time, staff recommends approval.
Thank you very much. This item may be opened up for public comments. Is there anyone that wants to speak on PZ 2025-09?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak to this item at this time, please raise your hand.
Okay. We can bring it back to the commission. Discussion from the commission. It's an easy one, huh? Okay. If we have no discussion, we can call the vote, or if anyone wants to do unanimous consent.
I'd like to request unanimous consent, please.
Okay, is there any objections? Seeing none, it's approved. Moving on to Resolution PZ 2025-11, recommending the approval of preliminary plat, Inlet Woods Subdivision 2025, replat of Inlet Woods Subdivision, Part 1, Lots 1 and 2, Block 10, in the Suburban Residential Zoning District. A motion to approve Resolution PZ 2025-11. Commissioner Wood.
I move to approve Resolution PZ 2025-11, recommending approval of the preliminary plat.
Thank you.
Second.
Director Buhner, we have the staff report, please.
Yes, preliminary plat's been submitted from McLean Consulting on behalf of Margaret Winston to merge lots 1 and 2, Block 10, Inlet Woods Subdivision, Part 1, to create one lot. These are at 1406 and 1408 Headley Drive here in Kenai. Subject lots are located northwest corner of the intersection of Headley Drive and Backwood Avenue in Inlet Woods Subdivision. There's a single-family dwelling on Lot 2, which is 1406 Headley Drive, and no improvements to Lot 1, which is the neighboring parcel at 1408 Headley Drive. If approved, merging the two lots will the two subject lots will result in a 0.3863 acre lot. And this is also consistent with the surrounding land use in that area, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you very much. Again, this item is open for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak to PZ 2025-11? Okay. Bringing it back to the commission. Discussion from the commission.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I have a quick question. Because I live in Inlet Woods subdivision, does that create a conflict of interest for me? Do I have to abstain from this vote?
No, if you're not immediately adjacent and you're not benefiting financially from this in any way, but thank you for disclosing.
Thank you.
okay. So we can call for the vote unless someone wants to call unanimous consent.
I would like to request unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, that is approved. Resolution PZ 2025-12, recommending the approval of preliminary plat, Holland Spur Highway Subdivision, Edition Number 1, replat of Holland Spur Highway Subdivision, Tract 1, in the General Commercial Zoning District. Is there a motion to approve Resolution PZ 2025-12? Commissioner Woodard.
I move to approve Resolution PZ 2025-12, recommending approval preliminary plat.
Second.
Thank you. Director Buhner.
Preliminary plat has been submitted from Peninsula Surveying on behalf of Glenn Martin for subdivision of Holland Spur Highway Subdivision Tract 1 to create two parcels. Two parcels, if approved, would be 2.548 and 2.734 acres respectively, working from west to east, which will allow varied commercial uses to be developed while maintaining necessary parking requirements, allowing safe access management to the Kenai Spur Highway, and allowing for the commercial building, the needed building setbacks. City water and wastewater are not available in this area. Property owner will need to install private wells and septic systems that meet the regulatory requirements of the State of Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation. Access to these lots is provided directly to the highway. Staff finds that the proposed preliminary plat for Holland Spur Highway Subdivision Edition Number 1 meets the general standards of Kenai Municipal Code 1410 subdivision regulations and 1424 development requirements table, and hereby recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the resolution.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on Resolution PZ 2025-12? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Discussion from the commission. Commissioner Penn.
Yes, I have a question for the administration. Will there only be one access point onto the highway from these properties?
They have not formalized or sent a site plan for any type of development at this point. I don't want to speculate. My guess, here I am speculating, would be they would have, depending on if they were to sell, if it's a current owner, they may have one. If it's going to be two separate owners, should one sell, potentially you could have two accesses, but that would come up during the access, when they ask for a right-of-way or driveway access.
Because that's a state highway, would the city have any input to that decision if it's one or two?
They would have to work, the applicant would have to work with the state DOT. We could, I believe we could put in our recommendations, but we do not have the final say since it's not our jurisdiction on that road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? Nope. All right, we can call for a vote unless anyone wishes for unanimous consent.
I'd like to request unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none? All right, we are moving to public hearings. We have Resolution PZ 2025-08, recommending approval to rezone the properties located at 202 North Forest Drive and 1408 Second Avenue from suburban residential to general commercial zoning district. We have a motion to approve Resolution PZ 2025-08. Commissioner Woodard.
I move to approve Resolution PZ 2025-08, recommending approval to rezone properties.
We have a second.
Second.
Director Beatner, we have your staff report, please.
The applicants are seeking to rezone properties located at 202 North Forest Drive and the adjoining parcel at 1408 Second Avenue from suburban residential to general commercial. The purpose of the rezone is to allow light and commercial uses on the subject parcels. For the parcel located at 202 North Forest Drive, which is the one on the corner, property owner intends to operate a law office, coffee shop, and commercial greenhouse. The parcel at 1408 Second Avenue would remain undeveloped at this time, but would be used for snow storage from the adjoining lot. North Forest Drive is classified as a major collector by the Alaska Department of Transportation, and as such is used to access several neighborhoods between the Kenai Spur Highway and Redoubt Avenue. The major collector route often has higher annual average daily traffic counts than surrounding streets and generally results in higher associated road noise. This noise often deters substantial residential development directly on the route. This property has historically had a conditional use permit initially issued in 1999 for a greenhouse, gift shop, and coffee shop. The current owners seek to reactivate this property with a similar mix of commercial uses, with the exception of the gift shop, which would be replaced by the law office, and some moving around of some of the uses, but the greenhouses would stay. There's vegetative screening to adjacent properties to the north, east, and south, and North Forest Drive is on the west side of the property. Let me see if I can get to my findings, make a summary. Based on the current uses along North Forest Drive, especially to the west and to the south, which is zoned general commercial and with some institutional uses such as the Salvation Army across the street, staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezone request for the properties located at 202 North Forest and 1408 Second Avenue. And then this commission's recommendation would be forwarded to City Council for their final consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to Resolution PZ 2025-08?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak to this item, you may raise your hand.
Okay. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, we'll bring it back to the commission. Discussion from the commission. Commissioner Woodard.
Well, I've known this property to be exactly what they want it to be for as long as I can remember, and there's never been any problem, so I see a yes for this.
I also agree that the uses are in line with what has existed in the past, and it matches up with the land use table, so for that, I'll be approving it.
Question on this, they're not doing any structural changes to the outside of the building? They're not adding on or anything like that? All the changes would be on the inside?
To my knowledge, yes, I believe that all the changes would be internal. That, we have not seen any application for a building permit for any additions at this time.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I agree. I think that's always been, since I've grown up, always been a little commercial spot there, and it seemed great, and I was bummed when it went away. So I'll be voting yes on that. Okay. We can call for a vote unless anyone wants unanimous consent.
I would like to request unanimous consent.
Okay. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll approve. Resolution PZ 2025-10, granting a conditional use permit to operate a retail businesses, greenhouse cafe, retail office of the existing structures on the property described as Lot 1, Fresh Start subdivision located at 202 North Forest Drive within the suburban residential zoning district. Is there a motion to approve Resolution PZ 2025-10?
I move to approve Resolution PZ 2025-10, granting a conditional use permit to operate a retail business of the existing structures.
Second.
Director Beener, we have your staff report.
Yes. To clear up any confusion, these are about the same locations. Since City Council has the final say on rezoning, we thought it prudent to ask for a conditional use permit should council decide not to act on the rezoning at this time, or however they would like to proceed. So this would allow for operations to commence while we wait for the rezoning to kind of catch up to it. Should the rezoning be approved, then this conditional use permit would be null and void because it would no longer be needed. But now I'll get into what they're requesting. The applicant is requesting to operate the existing single-family dwelling and accessory buildings as a retail business, specifically a greenhouse, a cafe, retail space, and law offices. A conditional use permit is required to operate the existing single-family dwelling and accessory buildings as retail businesses. This property has historically had a conditional use permit originally issued in 1999 for a greenhouse, gift shop, and coffee shop. The current owners seek to reactivate this property with a similar mix. And here's where it's specified that they have requested rezoning for the property in question. And as stated before, the light commercial uses would not have a significant impact, and due to their proximity to the Kenai Spur Highway, they're only about 600 feet or so. We don't forecast, even with some increased traffic, that it wouldn't unduly burden any of the residential areas to the north of this area. So staff recommends approval at this time.
Thank you. And we have the applicant here. Can you hear the applicant's presentation?
Okay, sorry. I didn't really have a presentation prepared, but our plan is to move my law office into the main house where Susan used to have the gift shop. The little cottage is what we call it. It used to be a residence. We did remodel that, and Oaks End is going to move their cafe into there. This is approved. And then the greenhouse will continue to be operated in the spring and summer months like it historically had been, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Fikes?
I just have a quick question on the location, since there's going to be multiple. Is it going to be a same address, 202, Suite 1, 2, or 3, or?
That's a good question. I think that that's what we'll have to end up doing. I hadn't really made a final decision yet, but yes, I think that that's what we'll have to do, because it'll be three separate, entities operating.
That would be helpful.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to Resolution PZ 2025-10?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak to this item, please raise your hand at this time.
Just state your name and address, please? Push that button there.
I'm sorry. Robert Peterson. I live at 214 North Forest Drive. That is just north of the property in question. I've lived there for 24 years. I'm familiar with the traffic and the conditions in the area there. Before this owner took over, and I've been there and familiar with both past and current traffic conditions. And I have no problem with the rezoning, and I wish them luck.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to PZ 2025-10? No one? All right, see no one else, we'll bring it back to the commission, discussion with the commission. Commissioner Petty.
Yes, for administration. In our previous resolution that we approved for the update on the zoning district, in your understanding, what would be the timeline, do you know, for that change if the council chooses to move forward with our recommendation?
So we are introducing it at the next council meeting, depending on the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They would hear it, it would be introduced at the 5th, and then the council meeting at the 19th would have the public hearing for council. At that time, they would have the ability to either approve, take no action, or reject the rezoning at that time. But that would be, the soonest that they could take action would be March 19th. So this would allow operations for any of the associated businesses while we wait for that paperwork to catch up. So potentially, the CUP may not actually, I don't want to say this, do it. It's more of a safeguard, just to let the process play out, because we don't want to rush council to make further deliberations.
And then, does this have to go before the borough, planning and zoning? With our update to that?
I do not believe so for rezoning, since we're not amending any of the parcels. It will be an update to our official zoning map and to our land use map to allow for the mixed use.
Any other discussion?
And just to clarify, so with this approval from our commission and subsequent possible approval, the applicants will no longer need a conditional use, correct?
That's correct. It would automatically expire.
All right, unless other discussion, yes, Commissioner Petty.
I was going to request unanimous consent if discussion is finished.
Excellent.
I just had a quick question. So the applicant has to pay a fee to process this CUP, correct?
Because they also were petitioning for a rezone at the same time, and we're having one public hearing on the same day, we only charge them one fee.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a second on unanimous consent?
A second.
Any objections? Seeing none, it is approved. We have Resolution PZ 2025-06, granting a conditional use permit for a cabin rental, i.e. short-term rental, and a boarding house in a single-family dwelling on the property described as Lot 16, Block 1, Anglers Acres Subdivision, Part 2, located at 1305 Angler Drive within the Rural Residential Zoning District. We have a motion to approve Resolution PZ 2025-06. Commissioner Woodard.
I move to approve Resolution PZ 2025-06, granting a conditional use permit for cabin rental.
Second.
Director Buhner, we have the staff report, please.
So for Resolution PZ 2025-06 is located at 1305 Angler Drive. The applicant is requesting to operate the existing single-family dwelling as a cabin rental, which is our closest definition to a short-term rental / boarding house. A conditional use permit is required to operate the existing single-family dwelling as a cabin rental and a boarding house. The rural residential zone is intended to provide for low-density residential development and outlying in more rural areas in a form that creates a stable and attractive residential environment. The proposed use would not necessarily violate the residential character of the neighborhood, as it would function or remain as a single-family dwelling and be seasonally used as a short-term rental and/or a boarding house for employees of the neighboring parcel, guide services, and lodge, which is the next PZ 2025-07. Furthermore, the proposed use is not anticipated to generate heavy traffic, as the use is limited to the single-family dwelling and there is adequate parking available. The existing density would remain unchanged since there's no proposed alteration to increase the number of dwelling units. Staff finds that the proposed use meets the intent of the RR zoning district. Staff finds that the proposed conditional use permit for a cabin rental dwelling on the property described as Lot 16, Block 1 of the Engler Acres subdivision, Part 2, meets the criteria for issuance of a conditional use permit as set forth in subsections E1 through E6 of Kenai Municipal Code 14.20.150, and hereby recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission adopt Resolution PZ 2025-06, approving the conditional use permit, subject to the following conditions. One, that any development or use of the property shall comply with all applicable federal, state of Alaska, and city regulations, regardless of whether or not the requirements are listed as conditions for the approval of the conditional use permit. And two, upon request, the applicant or applicant's representative shall meet with city staff for an on-site inspection.
Thank you very much. We can now hear the applicant's presentation.
Hello. Yeah, I've just, we're Tower Rock Lodge. We're located on the other side of the river, outside of city limits for the time being, and we're looking to move locations into the city of Kenai. I guess the next PZ we're going to talk about, I can elaborate further after we hear that second part, but essentially we're looking to move our lodge operation from across the river down to Engler Drive, which would involve staff housing and then short-term rentals centered around guided fishing adventures.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to Resolution PZ 2025-06?
Thank you. My name is Fred Braun, and I would support this resolution. I see it as another attraction to Kenai as far as the visitors. I see an increase in property tax. I see an increase in sales tax. All of these things are definitely a benefit to the city. And as far as I know, I believe I'm accurate, there's only one other, maybe two other single-family residential homes on that whole entire Engler Drive. And so the others are all either fish guide related or lodging operations. So again, I would definitely support this resolution, as well as number 7 coming up next. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to Resolution PZ 2025-06?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak to this resolution, all right, and it looks like Ron Rogalski has raised his hand. One moment.
Did you unmute? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to this, and thank each of you for your service and what you do for the commission and the city of Kenai. I would like to first say that I don't know, I got a number of bullet points here, but absolutely oppose this resolution, absolutely oppose the following 2 resolutions. If nothing else, is because they've combined 3 resolutions, 3 conditional use permits to try to move a commercial business from outside the city limits into the city limits. It's like, what? And that is in their laydown packet. You guys have the laydown packet. It has all that information in it. Okay, so again, rural residential means rural residential, not commercial, not bring businesses in. And I understand there are a number of people who want to drive businesses into Kenai and everything else, but that is not the purpose of a rural residential restriction and zoning. And we went through this a couple of years ago with some other issues of why rural residential stayed as the restriction and zoning for that area. The conditional use permit application says continually that it's for a lodge and guiding service of a single family dwelling. However, what they want to do with the single family dwelling is turn it into a 16-person dining hall. And this will follow on. There's two more applications that you'll hear and see with this. They want to do a 16-person dining hall and then bring in dry cabins. They want to bring in dry cabins to house their staff, moving them all from Tower Rock over on Suchansky Beach. I don't know whether any of you know where that is, but that's where they're bringing all this to and moving a very large commercial operation into a rural residential. And the final part of that, and I believe in your laydown packet, you'll see some information from one of my residents, one of my neighbors, Jim Rivers. The septic system support is questionable at best. Angler Drive has a very large issue with septic systems, with water, hydrology, and water table. And it's been an issue of many, many contentious interactions, including, deals with the DEC commissioner. I mean, we had to have things with him. But nonetheless, the septic system support of a bunch of dry shacks and additional employees and additional guests at this place would not be acceptable. I mean, how are they going to do that? And I do realize that I do realize that the DEC is really the king of running that thing, and it's not really in your guys' area. However, there are other conditional use permits who have conditions that they must meet DEC, permits and DEC specifications, and adding all these additional things, and you'll see in the next couple of things you listen to, that they want to bring in 1, 2, 3, 4 cabins. They want to bring in more log cabins. They want to bring in more things.
Ron, you're about out of time. You want a final comment there?
Yeah, well, I guess that's it. Irritating, but nonetheless, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Resolution PZ 2025-06.
It looks like we have Jim Richardson with his hand up. Jim, it looks like you're unmuted. You should be able to speak at this time. Okay, Jim, if you are speaking, we are unable to hear you at this time.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Resolution PZ 2025-06. I think we're good. And seeing no one else, let's bring it back to the commission. Discussion from the commission.
I have a question. Excuse me, I have a question for staff. So there is multiple resolutions before us. How does this work? If we're granting a conditional use for a permit for one thing and then being asked to do a conditional use permit for something else when things aren't even totally constructed yet, you know what I mean?
The reason they're two different is because the conditional use follows the land, not necessarily the owner. That's why, and since they're two separate parcels, that's why we have the two separate resolutions. Most of with the exception of the dry cabins, which would not require, by their nature, aren't going to require any plumbing or anything like that. All the rest of the structures are already there, already hooked up to the water and septic system, the well and the septic system. So we felt it appropriate. They may change the use slightly depending on what their intent is for each of the structures, but the structures themselves were already in place. They're just, like the gentleman said, moving their operations into the city.
I guess maybe this is a question for the applicant, but what is the parking plan for this size of a structure, for that size of a lot?
Yeah, so the most of our guests fly into Kenai, and we pick them up at the airport. We just acquired the property across the street, 1235 Angler Drive, which is, I believe, 1.6 acres, and there's adequate parking there, and that's actually where the guests would be staying.
So I guess I'll come back to staff. What is the parking plan for a 1 acre lot? Is that what it's zoned for, is just strictly parking, or are we talking about a residential lot then?
The southern lot, the one for PZ 202506, there's a map at the end of our staff report. See if I can find what page that is. But there is a layout that shows the parking in relation to all the structures. There's several different areas where they'll be parking. There's a couple larger areas and then a couple smaller where one or two vehicle could park closer to Angler Drive. Most of them are further away, closer to the actual structures.
Can you tell me what page?
I can try and find it. 97, 98. It doesn't have the number 98, but 97 is the last numbered one before.
So I guess my concern is like the previous person testified, is this is a rural residential area and you're bringing a commercial operation in with boats and trailers, I would assume, and additional staff and additional transportation. So I'm just concerned where that additional transportation is going to go.
Sure. So the boat component, it's on Beaver Creek, so the boats will be parked at the dock, in theory. The additional staff component, there's 6 of us. That would be, that's where the dry cabin component comes in. They're 8x12 dry cabins that would be on the 1305 parcel, which is, I believe, on the map. We drive the guests. We do it a little bit differently than a lot of other outfitters around here. We encourage people to fly into Kenai and pick them up, and then we drive them to the Kasilof, or if they're fishing, doing halibut trips with me, I drive them down to Homer. So it's with 16 guests, 18 guests, or a dozen guests. Typically, it's not as though there's a dozen cars. There's maybe, typically about half of the guests that we get are actually driving from Anchorage, and they're coming from the lower 48. 98% of them. We don't receive a lot of in-state guests. And then when you look at it from the perspective of 3 different parcels on that road that are all adjacent to each other. So we're not packing 16 people on a 1 acre parcel. It's 1.6, 2, and another 1. So it's, I guess, per acreage or person per acre or per unit area, I don't see it being any more dense than any of the other outfitters along that road. That makes sense.
Sure, but then you haven't changed the plating. So you still have each one of these lots as each individual lot. Are you dropping the plat or the lot lines and combining it all into one?
I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I mean, I haven't, we don't own the property yet. That's something I would consider.
And have you gotten an impact study from the River Center?
Well, there's a dock already in place.
And have you started clearing any trees?
No, we don't own the property. And I have no intention of clearing any trees. I mean, if anything, it's in the report. Actually, I'd like to do the opposite, given the spruce beetle kill stuff going on. We want to maintain the aesthetics of the property, if not improve it. I mean, we want our neighbors to have the same sense of privacy and that we'd like to have. We're very much into keeping the aesthetics and keeping it feel like Alaskan, that you're not butted up against everyone else. And I mean, as an aside, that's one of our kind of hobbies anyways, plants and trees and stuff like that. So that's something I'm very much, not only from the other people in the neighborhood, but from ourselves as well. Like, we do not want to, we have no intention of like going through there and mowing everything down and putting gravel everywhere and, which is a lot of those lots on that street are like. The properties haven't been fully occupied long-term in a while, so it is actually very much like grown up, and there was some spruce beetle cutting going on last summer. But I'd like to see it go the opposite direction. I want to plant as much stuff as we can in there to keep it beautiful, bolster the aesthetics of the property. I mean, that's why people want to come to Alaska, right? They don't want to fly all the way up here to see just a gravel lot mowed down going down to the river.
And do you plan to reside on that lot?
Yes, ma'am.
So if any issues arise during this conditional use permit, they would be addressed by you?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard?
So on this future plan, all these little green boxes are supposed to be little cabins for staff. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and so what I did was I wanted to be super transparent, basically. I don't know that, the dining hall thing, and I'm just kind of putting it all out there saying like, hey, if everything goes the way we hope it does, someday we like to get to this point, maybe maybe 2 years from now, we don't find the direction of the business growing that direction, we don't end up doing that. But the staff cabins would be on the 1305 lot. Those are the green dots, or the green rectangles. And those are cabins that we already have at our current location. They're 8 by 12 little cabins that our guides, there's no plumbing in them, as he mentioned. And they would basically be adjacent to the building at 1305. Yes, ma'am, those are the cabins, then the green rectangles.
And you mentioned across the street. Do you have something there already?
Yes, we just bought a property across the street.
Just property, or is there something on it?
We had the CUP transferred to us. It's 1235 Engler Drive. There's 2 cabins and a 4-unit building there.
And have you approved those already for people to be in, or are you
Yes.
just?
The CUP was transferred from the previous owner to us.
Okay.
So basically, that property would be for the guest housing. And then these 2 properties would be just a extension of that in the river access, obviously.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the commission? Commissioner Fikes?
Are we still having public testimony, or are we having?
Sorry, are we on public testimony? No, I think we are on discussion from the commission?
I just have concerns. I mean, I know everybody's excited about economic development for Kenai, but I've heard a great amount of testimony from this neighborhood trying to steer away from a guiding service and wanting to steer away from a rooming and board, and having a lot of agitation and frustration with the commission continually issuing conditional use permits for that very purpose. They have a lot of noise complaints, they have a lot of event complaints, and, you know, I'm quite surprised that I don't see more people in the audience here tonight. So I don't know if there wasn't any notification sent out, I don't know. As far as what's already in there, there's already, the city's already granted conditional uses for lodges and guide service, and they've done the same for the cabin rental. So I can't really cite any findings that it's not already in code, but like I say, I have grave concerns because that neighborhood is stressed adamantly that they want it to stay a rural residential neighborhood. They don't want boat traffic, they don't want a bunch of noise. So I would hope that you would be good neighbors. I would hope that you would be good business owners and respectful of their quality of life, because that is what it's zoned for, as a rural residential. I do recognize, like I say, that the land uses allow for those uses right now, but I do know that they've tried to petition and change that. So I just hope that, you know, you keep that in consideration for your neighbors.
Yeah, I fully intend to, I mean, we want to be stewards of the area, and we don't want to get sideways with anyone in the neighborhood, obviously. And we've been, you know, Tower Rock Lodge has been in business since the early mid-90s. You know, we were obviously outside of city limits, but, you know, as far as I came up here in 2009, started working for the lodge, and then I bought it a couple of years ago. I bought the business. And we, as far as I'm concerned, I think we have a fairly good reputation for those that know of us or know about us, and I'm going to work to continue that. And if anyone has, you know, an issue, we can talk about it, and we'll make it right, and we'll figure it out, and we can all cohabitate. And, you know, I guess on the plus side, you know, it's a seasonal business, so you know, it's essentially really 3 months of the year, I guess, where it will be occupied by others than just myself. But I understand the concern from people in the neighborhood, and that might get a little bit, you know, tripped out about having another business move in there. And we will do our best to accommodate and get along with everyone, including the environment, which is very, very important to us.
Thank you.
Just one more question. Where does your staff stay now?
We've leased a property since the mid-90s, and the property was purchased, and our lease is ending.
Okay, so what was I thinking?
And it's essentially the same setup where we are now. There's a house with our dry cabins, and so basically we're just shifting gears, basically.
So are your staff, do you bring them up from the States to
Some of
where they're
them-
temporary here in the summer?
Some of them are temporary, some of them are from around here, or but yeah, they would not be living there all year. They're the dry cabins. I mean, they're just temporary housing, basically. I would say that they're tastefully done cabins. I mean, they're not, you know, tough sheds or something out there. I mean, they're 8 by 12, you know, all kind of matching, you know, kind of go along with the whole aesthetics of our brand and what we do and everything. So it's not you know, I want this to be done as tastefully done as possible.
And I appreciate that. It just, with as many little cabins as you have and a bunch of probably young staff, it just looks like a kind of a resort to me within a neighborhood, and I think there's a potential for a lot of noise.
I understand that concern. It doesn't show this on this map. To my knowledge, the people that live adjacent to this property their tax ID, their tax address is in Anchorage. I've been by there multiple times over the last couple of years in the summer. I don't notice many people there. It's not, I mean, we're up early, and we're in bed early. I mean, the guest activities are on the other side of the street. I could understand maybe someone's notion of younger men guides in the summer, but I don't really foresee that as an issue, honestly, knowing the employees that we have. And the other thing is no one's really there during the middle of the day. So it's usually out early and back, anywhere from 3 to 4 o'clock. So it's not this back and forth, constant kind of thing that goes on. We tend to stagger our departure times as well. So on a busy day, if people are going to go fish the Kasilof, there could be maybe 4 cars leaving early in the morning. On the Kenai, it'd be 4 boats leaving or 5 boats leaving, which I don't think that is a burden on the Beaver Creek frontage itself. That's my opinion, obviously, but having been on a guide here for 17 years, I don't think that I don't think that the boat traffic or the car traffic thing is going to be as bad as some people might think it's going to be, just because of how our business model works. We don't get people with RVs and campers coming in. It's like I said, about half of our guests fly into Kenai, we pick them up, and then our guides drive them to wherever they're going to go fishing.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to discuss? Okay, we call for the vote.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes.
Or Commissioner Fikes?
Commissioner Fikes is voting yes.
Commissioner Woodard?
No.
And Commissioner Petty is a yes.
I heard you say Petty first. My mistake. And my name being called Petty last, I say yes again. Thank you.
And Chair Halstead?
Yes.
You have 3 yeses and 1 no. Motion passes.
Please note there is a 15-day period that an aggrieved party can file an appeal with the clerk's office. Moving on to Resolution PZ 2025-07, granting a conditional use permit for a lodge and guide service in a single-family dwelling on the property described as Lot 14A, Block 1, Anglers Acres Subdivision, Beaver Creek replat located at 1235 Angler Drive within the Rural Residential Zoning District. Do I have a motion to approve PZ 2025-07? Commissioner Woodard.
Motion to approve Resolution PZ 2025-07, granting a conditional use permit for the lodge and guide service.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Director Beatner, can we have your staff report, please?
Yes. The applicant is requesting to operate a lodge and guide service at the existing single-family dwelling. Conditional use permit is required to operate the existing single-family dwelling as a lodge and guide service. Proposed use would not necessarily violate the residential character of the neighborhood, as it was function or remain as a single-family dwelling and be seasonally used as a lodge and guide service. Furthermore, the proposed use is not anticipated to generate heavy traffic, as the use is limited to the single-family dwelling on that property, and there's adequate parking available both there and across the street, as was testified earlier. The existing density would remain unchanged, and there's no proposed alteration to increase the number of dwelling units. Staff finds that this proposed use meets the intent of the RR zoning district. The proposed use is similar to other properties on Angler Drive, where there are several lodge and guide service operations. The city has not received any complaints involving 1235 Angler Drive. Staff finds that the proposed use, similar to the nearby properties, would not have an adverse impact on the neighborhood and adjoining properties. Staff finds the proposed use would not impair the economic or non-economic value of adjacent properties in the neighborhood. Staff finds that the proposed conditional use permit for a lodge and guide service in the existing single-family dwelling on the property described as Lot 14A, Block 1 of Angler Acres subdivision Beaver Creek replat meets the criteria for issuance of a conditional use permit as set forth in subsections E1 through E6 of Kenai Municipal Code 14.20.150, and hereby recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission adopt Resolution PZ 2025-07, approving the conditional use permit subject to the following conditions. 1, any development or use of the property shall comply with all applicable federal, state of Alaska, and city regulations, regardless of whether or not the requirements are listed as conditions for the approval of the conditional use permit. 2, upon request, the applicant or applicant's representative shall meet with city staff for an on-site inspection.
Thank you very much. If you want to add any additional presentation, now you can. It's all good. Okay. Is anyone from the public who would like to speak to Resolution PZ 2025-07?
And anyone online, if you'd like to raise your hand to provide comment, you may do so at this time. Okay, we have Ron Rogalski.
Hi, it's actually his wife, MJ Loveland. I'm P.O. Box 35, 945 Ames. I don't oppose this development. This guy sounds like an upstanding citizen. My concern that I want to have on record is to make sure that his septic system will support all of his good plans. He's got great plans, great business, but we've been surrounded by places on Beaver Creek that their septic systems are problematic. So that is my request, that you put it in the conditional use permit, that the septic system will upstand however many bedrooms, because one cabin is one bedroom, however many bedrooms he has. So that is, that's my comment. Thank you.
One last.
And one last thing. Can't read your note. So thank you very much.
I'll speak over her. I'm sorry. The question is that the Joe, I believe this is Joe that has been weighing in here, Joe Chambers. The question is, can a non-owner actually receive a conditional use permit? I don't believe that's true.
Anyway, it's just a question, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak? What would you?
Just a point of order, it wasn't contained in the summary of the staff report, but within the conditional use permit in the resolution, under, get it quoted right, sorry. Whereas, under our findings, we do have one where it says that applicants are required to be in compliance with wastewater disposal requirements of Kenai Peninsula Borough, Chapter 20.40, and regulatory requirements of the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? No. We'll bring it back to the commission. Discussion from the commission. All right, seeing none, we can call for a vote, or if anyone wishes for unanimous consent. Call for a vote.
Commissioner Petty,
Yes.
Chair Halstead,
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard.
Yes.
It's 4 yeses, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Please note there's a 15-day period that an aggrieved party can file an appeal with the clerk's office. And we're moving on to unfinished business. We've got a discussion item for Aspen Creek, 701 North Forest Drive, conditional use permit. Director Buehner.
At this time, we don't have any additional information from our last meeting. It is our understanding that the owner and other property owners did have a discussion while we finished our conduction of business. We have not heard anything else from at that time, so we don't have any further report.
Thank you, Director Buehner. Anyone else wishing to comment on that? I think this was just kind of a placeholder to make sure that it didn't fall off our radar. So we'll move that on to our next meeting too, just to follow up on it. Excellent. And moving on to new business, we've got a discussion action item. We're scheduling a work session to examine the current conditional use permits in terms of potential rezoning. Director Buehner, can you have the staff report?
Yes, as we talked at the beginning of the year, one thing that the commission asked me to look into was the conditional use permitting process, kind of from start to finish. As part of that, we also realized that in certain areas there could be, I'll say clusters of conditional use permits in certain neighborhoods throughout the city. So as we're going through this process, we wanted to bring your attention to that. So we wanted to schedule work zone, see what potential remedies we may have for that, because we don't want to develop a process that isn't going to work for us as a city to encourage business, but we also don't want to not have a process that also helps protect the city. So as part of that, we want to see what ones are actually needed, which ones may be able to, whereas the exception become the norm in certain areas. So we may want to explore looking at potential rezoning in areas, but again, all of that would be kind of up for discussion. We just wanted to show you the map of where all the conditional use permits are, what kind of permits they are, how long they've been around, and kind of see what the best path forward is. And that way, that will help us guide what kind of a conditional use process we want to develop here in the city.
Thank you. Commissioner Fikes?
And so through this work session process, whatever information is gleaned or whatever solutions are selected, it's then passed on to the council for approval?
Ultimately, yes, we would work out the details at our level, but to make any amendment to code, it would have to go in front of council to formally adopt. We just wanted to, we want to have them have a good final product to send up to them. So I wanted to have more of a informal back and forth discussion with everyone. And so this was just scheduling, a request to schedule one. I know that a few people are absent, so that however the chair wants to lead, we may, if we don't find a date tonight, we may push it out to email for the commission to set one, and then it will be duly announced as a work session in advance of any date that we do pick.
And I assume we would have access to any kind of reporting for any past complaints or issues with the current permits?
Yes, the all current CUPs would be fair game at that point, because we have all the records upstairs. We would just we would know any complaints if there, especially if there's hotspots or if there's one that's a repeat offender or something like that. But we would have a report that has everything compiled per permit in an easily readable format.
So the goal of this work session is to tap into the permits to see if it's still the active tool that the city wants to utilize for that program, or if they want to totally change the land zone.
At this point, everything's on the table. We have heard feedback from CUP holders that there could be a, depending on it, because there are some that have multiple CUPs for the same property, and it tends to be an administrative burden on them to compile all the documentation for each and every one, each CUP, because each one requires a report from the CUP holder. We want to streamline it. We want to be able to have an effective enforcement tool, but at the same time, what we have currently may or may not be working. We just want to make sure that we leave no stone unturned and make sure the process benefits both the city and our residents equally.
Commissioner Petty?
So for staff, under our guidance with our land use tables, our rural residential has the opportunity to have conditional use permits. Is that correct?
Every zoning has the the possibility of having conditional use permits, depending on what the ultimate use is, and depending on the zone. So different ones have, different ones, rural residential is one of the most restrictive. But suburban also has a fair number of restrictions, and even some of our industrial uses have restrictions on what can and cannot be placed in there. So it really depends on the use case in the zone.
And so when, when a new member of our community comes before us with a conditional use permit, we have to look, is it my understanding that we have to look at that separate and apart from any other conditional use permits that might be in the area and not judge that based on the behavior of other holders of conditional use permits? So we don't want to show undue unfairness. Would that be our mode of operation?
It is my understanding that each and every conditional use permit stands on its own merits for its own use, because each use, you may have similar uses, you may have different uses in the same neighborhood. And if one is not a good neighbor, we don't necessarily want to punish somebody who could be a good neighbor based on that. So yes, individually, but also at the same time, we also recognize that at some point there may be several conditional uses in the same neighborhood. And at that point, we need to consider, is the current zone that it's in appropriate if a lot of different uses have been moved in over time, which could be years, decades. We don't know how long. Well, we do know how long, but in any one instance, I don't have an actual example handy, but we just want to make sure what we're doing is correct, and we're looking at more holistically as well as the actual process itself.
So there could actually, with this work session, there might be opportunity to revisit that space to see if it's actually zoned properly, if there's so many conditional use permits that space might have changed over time.
There are provisions in code that allow P and Z to look at zoning, and if the commission does think that zoning should change, P and Z can initiate the rezoning process in and of themselves. They don't necessarily have to be petitioned. It would require a public hearing, so the public would be noticed, and any affected. In that case, if it would be a neighborhood, we would have, a much larger noticing radius, but the commission does hold that power.
Thank you, Director Reader. Any other discussion? No? Okay, so as far as scheduling a work session, I would think the best solution, I'm fairly open with my schedule. I think I'll probably just an email out so everyone can kind of check their calendars, and especially for the people that aren't here tonight. That's probably a good way to go about it.
Yep, I can either send out like a doodle poll where you can collect dates, or if you have certain dates, and we can be in conjunction with a planning and zoning meeting, or we can meet another day if it works better for anyone. So we're very open.
Okay. I know I've got a mildly restrictive schedule, but I can give you those dates. I'm flexible, but I think emailing's excellent idea. And that leads us to reports. Planning Director Buettner, may I have your report, please?
Yes. So first and foremost, you may have seen a email and a press release go out from the city. Some of the applicants here, we do apologize. There was a spamming spoof through email trying to actually extort some of our applicants for an application approval fee. We want to state, in no uncertain terms, we do not have an approval fee. It was quite steep. It was almost $5,000 per application, which is absolutely not true. We did report it to the police. We're not the only planning department, unfortunately, in the U.S. that has faced this. Anchorage just faced it. We've relayed it to the borough and the city of Soldotna, and they're pushing it out to the other municipalities. So we apologize for any inconvenience. We're working on adjusting our process to take out any potential identifying information in any of our published works, even the agenda. So again, I just want to apologize for that inconvenience, and we're going to tackle it head on.
Thank you. And Commission Chair, I just would like to say again, I think every time we have these meetings, I appreciate you all for being here. And I say it because I mean it. I think you are all amazing. I love the diversity that we have when we come to these meetings. We definitely are tackling these issues that come up from multiple angles. And I love having the ability to, sound off on each other. So I appreciate you all and thank you very much. Moving on to Borough Planning, Commissioner Fikes.
Let's see, we had a meeting on Monday, the 24th, gave us an opportunity to review 7 plats, and all 7 were subsequently passed. And then we had one item on the agenda, which was a hearing for a street naming resolution in the Diamond Ridge community, and they were looking to change that to Susan Butcher Road. And so that petition was withdrawn, and so that was the end of our business. Director's comments, he talked about the flood maps, the updating that just took place, and I believe it'll be available on the borough's website at the end of this month. And there should be a comment period on March 20th for the SIP, or safety instruction, or SIP for the safety deal going on with the DOT in the Cooper Landing area. So if you have any comments during their construction, your opportunity would be on March 20th on the borough's website for that. And that was all we had.
Thank you, Commissioner Fikes. Councilmember Askin, may we have your report, please?
Thank you, Chair Halstead. Excuse me. It was a fairly short meeting. We approved increasing estimated revenues to purchase ballistic vests for the police department. And then we had a housekeeping amending sections of the Kenai Municipal Code for personnel regulations. And then we authorized the city manager to execute a lease of airport reserve lands between the city of Kenai and ENA for lots 5A and 5B. Field of Operations Subdivision number 10, and I believe that was, I'm not sure who that was with. I think it was with Everett's Fuel. And then the other things, we authorized the city manager to modify the agreement with the borough for accepting landfill leachate at the wastewater treatment plant. And administration brought forth working to standardize our digester blowers at the wastewater plant facility. And then we discussed, there's several nonprofit agencies that the city gives a donation to every year. And we're discussing requesting annual reports from those. They're kind of, the grants seem to be just automatically approved every year, and we don't know what's happening with those nonprofits. And that was it. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Askin. Any questions? No? All right, appreciate you being here. Additional public comment? Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment?
Just one quick question. For the 15-day appeal period,
So your question was 15-day appeal period, does that count weekends?
there was a comment made that the appeal period is 15 days after tonight's meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so my question would be, does that count as those business days or straight 15?
Straight 15 days. Yep. Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, next meeting attendance is March 12th. Is anyone planning to be absent or attending remotely? No? Okay. Commission's comments and questions. Commissioner Woodard.
I'm good.
Commissioner Petty.
Yes, I would just like to go on public record to thank the administration for the work session that we had on Monday night, and for those that were not able to attend, it was very, very valuable in helping have a greater understanding of parliamentary procedures and just the whole process. And it was very, very well done and wonderfully attended. So I just wanted to say thank you for that effort for all the commissions and the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hikes?
No comment.
And I'm done talking. So pending items, we have none. Seeing no further business, we are adjourned. Sorry, we're not adjourned. Everybody sit down. Commissioner Kraus?
I had no comments. Thank you.
Oh, now is your chance. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kraus. Have a good evening.
Uh-huh.
And now we have no further business. We are adjourned.